Someone says something that lands poorly. Not brutally, just little wrong, somewhat sloppy. And you see something unusual occurring in the few seconds after. One person in the room has already moved on, already chatting about something else, apparently unaffected. Another individual obviously stiffens, withdraws, bears it for the rest of the evening. And then there's a third person, maybe you, maybe someone you know, who caught the moment, felt it, understood what it did to the room, and gently altered the discussion without attracting attention to any of it. That third individual has something the other two don't. Not empathy exactly, though empathy is part of it. Not emotional sensitivity, but that's included too. What they have is a precise, trainable, quantifiable set of talents that psychologists have spent the last 3 decades attempting to map and understand. It goes by a moniker you've undoubtedly heard used casually and frequently incorrectly: emotional intelligence. Let me show you what it truly is, what it's not, and why it can be one of the most genuinely beneficial things to grasp about yourself. The notion was originally created in the early 1990s by psychologists Peter Salovey and John Mayer, and then popularized and severely oversimplified by Daniel Goleman. The original scientific approach portrays emotional intelligence not as a personality attribute and not as a general propensity toward being good with people, but as a specialized set of cognitive talents connected to emotions. 4 of them, grouped in increasing order of sophistication. The first is the capacity to interpret emotions appropriately, in yourself, in other people, in voices, in faces, even in things and art. This sounds basic until you realize how infrequently people really do it. Most of us have learnt to conceal, dismiss, or misidentify our own emotional states, particularly the ones that seem inconvenient. And reading other people correctly, not projecting, not presuming, but actually reading, demands a calibration that not everyone has achieved. The second ability is using emotions strategically. This is the one most people don't anticipate. Emotions aren't simply information, they're motivating fuel, and various emotional states create distinct cognitive modes. Mild positive affect, for instance, has been regularly demonstrated to increase creative problem solving. Mild anxiety, in the correct quantity, sharpens analytical attention. Emotionally intelligent individuals, consciously or not, are adept at matching their emotional state to the task at hand, or at least detecting when their present condition is working for or against them. The final ability is comprehending emotions. This is the conceptual, almost linguistic dimension, the ability to grasp how emotions grow, transform, and interact. Understanding that frustration typically follows resignation, that sadness and relief may coexist without conflict, that what appears like rage is very frequently dread traveling in disguise. This emotional fluency permits emotionally intelligent people to navigate circumstances using a type of map that others don't have access to. The fourth and highest talent is controlling emotions, in yourself and in others. Not suppressing them, not performing them, managing them. Enabling the proper sentiments to endure long enough to be beneficial, halting the ones that are counterproductive, and influencing the emotional states of those around you in ways that support true connection rather than manipulation. Here's where it gets fascinating, since the common interpretation of emotional intelligence has moved dramatically from the studies. In its popularized version, EI became a type of blanket phrase for being warm, sensitive, pleasant, and socially comfortable. The person who tears during movies and remembers everyone's birthdays. The one who says, "I hear you," and means it. These things can be evidence of emotional intelligence, but they're not the same thing. Emotional intelligence, as the original researchers characterized it, is a cognitive talent. And like other cognitive abilities, it can exist in people who are also pretty introverted, quite direct, not particularly warm in the conventional sense, and not at all easy to be around. Some of the most emotionally sophisticated persons in any room are the quietest ones. They're not executing their attunement, they're digesting it. They've noticed more than they've said, comprehended more than they've showed, and chosen their interventions thoughtfully and sparingly. Meanwhile, some of the most socially expressive, emotionally performative persons have actually weak emotional intelligence, because portraying emotion and absorbing emotion are fundamentally separate tasks. There's also the honest complexity of what academics term emotional manipulation, the exploitation of emotional intelligence talents in service of self-interest at others' detriment. The same aptitude that allows someone to read a room properly also allows them to abuse a room. High emotional intelligence is not automatically ethical. It is a capability, and like other capabilities, its usefulness relies on how it's directed. Now, the more personal question. What does strong emotional intelligence genuinely look like in an average life? It looks like observing your own irritation before it develops into actions, like sensing a discussion shift and understanding what just changed without anybody having voiced it out loud. Like recognizing, in the middle of a debate, that the surface issue is not exactly what the dispute is about. Like being able to hold someone else's suffering without instantly trying to repair it, because you understand that not all distress wants to be addressed. Some of it just needs to be seen. It also appears like discomfort occasionally. High emotional intelligence implies you can't successfully pretend you didn't notice. You felt it, you recorded it, you comprehended it, and that means you're also answerable to it in a way that lesser emotional intelligence actually isn't. The individual who didn't notice the shift in the room can go out without carrying anything. The individual who noticed everything takes the awareness with them. This is one of the less discussed expenses. Research has repeatedly established a substantial association between emotional intelligence and quality of relationships, leadership effectiveness, and mental health outcomes. But the relationship with mental health is not just more EI, fewer problems. High emotional intelligence comes with better sensitivity to interpersonal dynamics, which can imply more delight in intimate relationships and also more acute awareness of when those connections are strained. It enhances the signal in both directions. Here's the most crucial item I want to leave you with, and it's the one that gets missed most often in the discourse about emotional intelligence. It is actually learnable. Unlike IQ, which is extraordinarily constant throughout a lifetime, emotional intelligence responds to experience, reflection, and purposeful practice. The capacity to interpret emotions properly grows sharper the more you pay purposeful attention to it. The ability to grasp emotional dynamics develops with exposure to complexity, in relationships, in literature, in therapy, in honest discourse. The capacity to govern your own emotional states is trainable in ways that neuroplasticity research has confirmed. The neural links between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center, actually improve with practice. This implies that every time you hesitate before reacting, you're developing something. Every time you stay intrigued about what you're genuinely experiencing rather than just acting from it, you're constructing something. Every time you fight the interpretation that your initial feeling offered you and wonder if there's another reading, you're constructing something. You're not born with a fixed level of emotional intelligence. You're born with a starting point and a nerve system that, if you pay attention to it honestly and regularly, will progressively get more sophisticated in how it reads, utilizes, interprets, and controls the emotional life that is occurring in you and around you all the time. So, where do you believe you land? The self-awareness piece, the empathy piece, the management piece. Which comes naturally and which feels like work? Drop it in the comments. Genuinely intrigued. And if the psychology of how your mind truly acts is what drew you here, there's much more of this coming.